150,000 British holidaymakers stranded abroad overnight. At 2 o'clock in the morning on the 23rd of September 2019, the world's oldest travel company stopped trading. Every flight cancelled, every booking void. 21,000 staff, 9,000 of them in Britain, out of work by breakfast. Families sitting by hotel pools in Mallorca, Crete and Antalya woke to find the company that had sold them the holiday no longer existed. In some resorts, hoteliers who had not been paid stood at reception asking British guests to settle the bill again, in cash, before they could leave. The British government chartered 45 aircraft. For 2 weeks, that fleet was temporarily the 5th largest airline in the country. They called it Operation Matterhorn, and it was the biggest peacetime repatriation in British history. The company that failed had been selling holidays since 1841. Gone under. How British business dies. Thomas Cook was a cabinet maker and a Baptist preacher from Derbyshire. In 1841, he arranged a train from Leicester to Loughborough for a temperance meeting. 500 passengers, a shilling each, tea and a brass band included. From that came an industry. Cook invented the package holiday, the idea that an ordinary person could hand over a fixed sum and have the entire journey arranged for them. He created the hotel voucher and the traveller's cheque. Within 30 years, his company was taking Britons up the Nile. For most of the 20th century, Thomas Cook was how Britain went abroad. It was the high street shop with the sun-faded posters, the brochure that arrived in January, the name on the plane at Gatwick. By the 2000s, it owned airlines, hotels, and more than 550 shops across the United Kingdom. It was, by any measure, a national institution. And by then, it was already carrying the thing that would kill it. In 2007, Thomas Cook merged with MyTravel, a rival package holiday group that had been losing money for years. The merged company recorded around £1.1 billion of what accountants call goodwill, the premium paid above the value of what was actually bought. Goodwill is a promise on a balance sheet. It says the deal will earn its price back in future profits. It sat there for 11 years. Analysis of the company's accounts shows that for much of that period, the goodwill on its books was worth 2 or more times the entire stock market value of the company. Meaning the market was saying, year after year, that the promise was not worth what the accounts claimed. And the accounts did not change. And the world the merger had bet on was disappearing. Passengers were booking flights and hotels themselves online. Budget airlines had taken the short-haul routes. The 550 shops that had been an asset became a fixed cost in a business that no longer needed them. Underneath, the debt from the deals never left. By 2019, the company was carrying around £1.6 billion of it, and paying interest on that debt swallowed the profit it still made. Its airline was on track to earn £129 million that year. It made no difference. And in the 12 years before the collapse, its last 3 chief executives took home a combined £35 million. In May 2019, Thomas Cook finally wrote down the value it had been carrying since the merger. The half-year loss came in at £1.5 billion. By the summer, it needed rescuing. Its largest shareholder, the Chinese group Fosun, agreed to lead a £900 million recapitalisation. Then, in September, the company's lenders, including Royal Bank of Scotland and Lloyds, demanded a further £200 million as standby funding for the winter. Thomas Cook went to the British government and asked for £150 million to bridge the gap. The answer was no. The Prime Minister said it was a lot of taxpayers' money and that a rescue would set up a moral hazard. The argument that saving a failing company teaches every other company that failure is survivable. Talks ran through the weekend in a London law firm's offices. They ended just after midnight. At 2 a.m. on Monday the 23rd of September, Thomas Cook Group plc entered compulsory liquidation. Within hours, the government was flying aircraft toward Mediterranean airports to bring home the customers of the company it had just declined to save. 3 weeks later, its former chief executive sat in front of a parliamentary committee and its chairman was asked when the trouble had started. "21,000 people lost their jobs worldwide, around 9,000 of them in Britain, many finding out from the news. The repatriation cost the taxpayer roughly £100 million, around two-thirds of the loan the government had refused to give. The hoteliers and suppliers were left unpaid. In Peterborough and Manchester, where the company's offices were, whole streets of local businesses lost their biggest customer overnight. And the executives. Between 2014 and 2018, Chief Executive Peter Fankhauser was paid around £8.3 million in salary, bonuses and benefits, including a bonus of £750,000 for 2017, 2 years before the collapse. The three chief executives before the end took a combined £35 million. Called before MPs, Fankhauser was asked directly whether he would give the bonus back. He said he understood the public anger, that he had worked tirelessly, and that the failure was not one-sided. He said he would consider what was right, but would not decide that day. The committee chair told him his apologies rang rather hollow. No money was returned, no director was disqualified, no one was prosecuted. The company's auditors were questioned by Parliament. Nothing followed for the people who ran it. In November 2019, Folsom bought the Thomas Cook brand name out of the wreckage for £11 million. The shops were bought by another travel firm, which rehired hundreds of the staff. The name still sells holidays today. The company that carried it does not exist. Thomas Cook was not killed by the internet. It was wounded by the internet and killed by a decision made in 2007. A merger that bought a struggling rival at a price the company then spent 11 years refusing to admit it had overpaid. Every year the accounts said the promise was still good. Every year the market said it wasn't. And every year the people signing those accounts were paid as though it were. When the bill came, it went to 9,000 British employees, to the hoteliers, and to the taxpayer who paid £100 million to fly home the customers of a company the state had just refused to lend £150 million. Because when a British institution collapses, the bill and the blame almost never land in the same place. Next time, a company that ran the buses, the trains and the school meals, and a council that went bankrupt owing more than it could ever pay. If you want it, subscribe. New film every Sunday. Gone Under. How British Business Dies.